Newcastle handed 18-year-old Stephen Howie his debut in place of the injured Mark McGee. But it was one of United's most experienced players who stunned Plymouth. The season just 2 minutes old, and Danish international Bjorn Christensen strolls forward to find the net. Who says the sweeper system is defensive? The new teenage striker really should have had the debut he'd always dreamed of. Dylan picks up the loose ball, the keeper's nowhere, but Howie snatches at the chance, and the headlines pass him by. The game gives away few favours. United were always in control, though, with Ray Ranson just one of the players looking hungry for the fight ahead. Terrific run and cross, and Rhys Wilmot just had to beat Mick Quinn to the ball. But Quinn's a hard man to keep quiet. The second half, Roy Aitken waits to deliver, but was the run perfectly timed? The defence claims offside. Quinn didn't discuss the finer points of the new law. 2-0, and the promotion bandwagon starts to roll. Turned up to Blackburn at 20-5 and not missed too much. Injury time, not the perfect corner from Kevin Dillon, but Liam O'Brien turns it into a match winner with a brilliant strike. Well worth waiting for. Newcastle need goals from midfield, and that one means it's 2 wins out of 2 for United. The Millwall defeat hadn't revealed major shortcomings, but this header from Liam O'Brien was a rare bright spot. United were certainly more than a little fortunate to survive a penalty claim. A terrible back pass from John Anderson lets in Nicky Cross, and keeper John Burridge clattered in. Anxious looks, but no spot kick. Cross again was at the heart of another difficult moment for Jim Smith's team. Surging run, but it's the post to the rescue. Then, after 66 minutes, it's that man again. Bjorn Christensen's free kick, and Mick Quinn once more shows he knows exactly where the goal is. That's his third of the season. And what price Newcastle without Mickey? The scoreline could have been even more impressive than the display, but this was a move to admire. Kevin Brock's finish, though, is saved point-blank by Trevor Wood. Still, you can't argue with 2 away wins out of 2. Mickey Quinn had only just put down another Player of the Year award he received before the game when Portsmouth nearly took a shock lead. 2 minutes gone and a cracking opening gambit ends with Colin Clark shaving the post. There weren't many more Pompey high spots. Newcastle were soon calling the shots and firing them in. Liam O'Brien's blockbuster had keeper Andy Gosney rocking. Approaching the half hour and another free kick. This time Kevin Dillon finds Quinn, but Gosney produces a save to match. The warning signs were being posted, though. Newcastle were pressing constantly. This long ball out wouldn't quite fall for Dillon, but O'Brien was full of running and so nearly swept through for a solo classic. But Gosney wasn't having it. Mind you, the keeper was left high and dry when he didn't come all the way for this corner. Roy Aitken's header is kept out by Gavin Maguire, but the goal had to come. Not surprisingly, it was set up by United's main creative partnership these days, Kevin Brock and Ray Ranson. A class ball in by the fullback, and his old club really should know about letting Quinn turn in the box. No hesitation, and the number 9's goal meter is running again. Who knows what was said in the Portsmouth dressing room at half-time, but they kicked off with Martin Cool's Pelé impersonation. Billy Bremner couldn't have done better, let alone Rory. 9 minutes later, though, O'Brien showed what unfair treatment the long ball gets. Right into Brock's path. The cross is whipped in, and Quinn knows exactly what he's going to do. And that's the sort of finish that gets more elegant players world-class rating. 5 for the season. Don't worry about Mickey. It could nearly have been a hat-trick with Quinn the woodwork away from adding another trick to his repertoire. Where did he get this one from? But Newcastle, being Newcastle, couldn't let the fans relax too much. Just under 20 minutes to go, and John Beresford's cross glanced into his own net by John Anderson. But not enough to take the shine off United's principal goalscorer. The first was in the 10th minute. The usually reliable Bjorn Christensen missed kicks, and Kevin Scott upends Andy Kennedy. The crowd feared the worst, but Gary Porter came to the rescue and blasted the penalty over the top. All smiles again now. In the second half, the chance and the save of the match. Tommy Gaynor on loan from Nottingham Forest battled for the opening. John Anderson crossed. Mick Quinn's point-blank shot kept out by David James. But for the first time since October the 6th, the 3 points were destined for Jim Smith's team. Linesman spotted Joe McLaughlin's handball only 15 minutes from time, and the mercurial Mick showed wobbly Watford how to succeed from the penalty spot. Relief at last. United.
Bryan were both on the bench for most of yesterday's match, so there could be some movement. Newcastle's movement, meanwhile, is up the table after yesterday's three-pointer. They look like following Middlesbrough into the goalless draw gallery until Kevin Brock's cross goes all the way to new boy Gavin Peacock. That's his first goal for the club, and he hasn't even tasted the hospitality at St James Park yet.
The weather, bitterly cold and gale-force winds, threatened to be the only winners at St James's, but Newcastle took early heart from an uncharacteristic Peter Shilton. When Newcastle, with the wind at their backs, pressed hard, Kevin Brock's free kick just over. And Mark Stimson served early notice of his intention to have a go. This time, Shilton was at his best. A goalless first half, but Newcastle continued the pressure after the restart. John Anderson stole the ball just inside the Newcastle half and flighted a perfect pass into Quinn's path, 1-0 after 61 minutes. Man of the match, Stephen Watson, just 16 years old, crowned a tremendous performance by forcing this free kick just outside the box. With the 20,000 crowd sensing something on, Dillon tapped to Stimson, and not even Shilton can stop these. 2-0 to Newcastle, and Derby's threat at an end. At long last, a performance to give some hope for future success at St James's.
To turn in a good performance like that.
In front with the best chance of the first half. When Kevin Dillon latched onto the loose ball, it took a brilliant save from Bobby Mims to block the way. The Newcastle new boy was David Mitchell, Scottish-born, Australian connections, on loan from Chelsea, but this one boomeranged wide. In the second half, it was an under from John Burridge that gave the neighbourly Scot his second bite. Out of nothing, he produced a volley which skimmed the bar. But Mitchell wasn't to be outdone. 16-year-old Steve Watson created the chance with a great cross, and the Lone Star scored his first ever goal in the Football League. It earned the 3 points, but then for some reason United stopped playing. Craig Skinner should have scored in Blackburn's first real attack, but Burridge saved. Then the Lancashire side created a golden chance, only for Skinner again to shoot wide. It left Mitchell with memories of a magic moment after 2 years in the wilderness.
I remember young Stephen Watson getting the ball wide.
Brighton Pier after Wednesday night's great giveaway, and they made sure the tide turned to put United's promotion dreams back on course. It only took Newcastle 6 minutes to show Millwall they meant business. Steve Watson heads on the free kick, and Gavin Peacock hits a cracking volley past keeper Brian Horn. That's his second for the club, but the question was, could United reward the travelling fans and hang on to a slender lead? Teddy Sheringham had a different plan, but his great effort flashed just wide of the post. John Burridge could afford to leave that one alone, but he had to be at his sharpest to thwart Alex Ray's run through the box. It's cleared, and seconds later, a blunder at the back by Millwall's Steve Wood allowed Mickey Quinn to try his luck. But Alan McCleary made up for his earlier mistake with the timely challenge. It all came to nothing. A cheeky back heel sent Paul Stevenson away down the right. His cross is knocked out, headed back in, and eventually crosses the line. But the referee had already blown for offside, and it didn't stand. Another spectacular stop from Burridge as Stevenson let fly, and the keeper's up again to get the rebound. Finally, the best chance of an equaliser for John Goodman. Thankfully for United, he must have skived off heading practice last week.
But Newcastle hang on, and I wonder if Quinn combined to feed Gavin Peacock. The quality of finish by the former Bournemouth man was perfect. The fans in the Gallagher were jumping early. That's Peacock's third since he joined. Port Vale threatened only once in a poor first half. Robbie Earle and Darren Beckford troubled Burridge, but the ball the right side of the post for United. Mind you, Budgie, as ever, had to earn his corn after the break. He couldn't have seen too much of Andy Porter's shot, but he got a hand to it. It was enough to spur Jim Smith's men. Ray Ranson surged down the right in a rare United attack. His first attempt was blocked, but he regained control to find skipper Roy Aitken. Mickey Quinn makes a habit of scoring against Port Vale. This header continued the run. No novelty in a Quinn goal, but the home fans had also seen their first from Peacock.
I've been a bit
Two
unfortunate.
goalless draws since last Saturday. You could have predicted the gaps on the terraces yesterday. But Newcastle-Leicester games are notorious for the sound of ball hitting net. Mark McGee has starred in close encounters before. He came nearest to giving the fans an early goal. His time to come. John Anderson, standing in at full-back, started United's next attack. This time McGee and Kevin Brock combined, but it was the adventurous Irishman who followed up to see his thunderbolt clip the woodwork via the keeper's fingers. The first goal came from a Brock corner. Kevin Scott at the far post, and Mr. McGee just where he likes it. A goal at last for the fans. Number 6 this season for the Scot. And it was McGee again who set up the next chance for his partner. A typical Mickey Quinn swivel, but Carl Muggleton saved. Goal number 2 came with the old Brock routine, the free kick, the far post header this time from Aitken, and eventually Scott Sloan helps himself to his first senior goal for United. In the second half, Newcastle seemed to slow a pace, allow Leicester to come back into the match. They scored a good goal too. Tommy Wright played a sweet 1-2 with David Kelly and scored then with a tremendous volley past John Burridge. Tommy's dad used to play for Sunderland in the 50s. United fans probably didn't like him much either. And they certainly didn't burst into applause for this fellow, Leicester's manager Gordon Lee, the man who sold Supermac and all that. But Lee might have had the last laugh. But Kelly's free header sailed wide. 2-1 to Newcastle, and they needed that. Kings United must look for if they're to make the top 7. Gary Porter fired in this effort, but it was Newcastle who called the early tune. The Mark McGee-Mick Quinn duet looked to have set up an opener for Gavin Peacock. But the eager young midfield player could only hold his breath as the Watford defence pull a tightrope act right along their own goal line. But 5 minutes before half-time, Newcastle struck with an unstoppable goal. Kevin Brock tees up John Anderson for a blockbuster. Not bad for an emergency left-back. But Anderson was visibly struggling with a hamstring injury. He couldn't stop David Byrne here, but United looked to have muddled through till Nigel Gibbs turned the ball back in and Paul Wilkinson nips in to steal the equaliser just 3 minutes after the restart. Anderson soon limped off for Alan Nielsen, but it was to be a second debutant who came off the bench to turn the match. Andy Huntstein from Kettering won't forget his first minutes in league football. A confident cross, and Mickey Quinn stoops to nod in the winner. It's all looking a lot brighter suddenly for Newcastle. Unpredictable. Yesterday they turned on the style against Oldham right from the off. Gavin Peacock ignoring a trio of defenders to give United a flying start. 1 up after 7 minutes. But Peacock had to share top billing with Andy Hunt. The former non-league striker is suddenly bristling with confidence. This snapshot bounced wickedly for keeper John Hallworth. But Hunt was only adjusting his sights. His first league goal on Wednesday was spectacular enough, but the way he so casually cracked in his second in 4 days suggests he could be a real bargain buy.